One of the biggest questions that we get is about indexing when it comes to index universal life policies and fixed index annuities. We want to help you better understand what indexing is, why it's important to blend those indexes, and the different tools that you have that can help you better understand indexing with these products. Let's get into it.
Chris, this is kind of a fun topic because both of you and I talk about indexing every day, whether you're writing annuities or whether you're writing IULs. So we may have similar or different takes on some of these things.
I think we can bring a lot to the table.
Yeah, absolutely. But, indexing itself is very important. It can be kind of daunting for some guys, especially if they haven't gotten into index products before. Indexing is essentially how a policy's account value can be credited from an insurance company without being directly invested into the market.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, remember, we always see that annual point-to-point, annual reset. What do these things mean? They're really important. I mean, you have annual point-to-points. If you buy something in September of 2023, you're going to get credit for it in September of 2024. It's what the market does during that time, right?
Absolutely.
And then you have a beautiful benefit of annual reset in there as well. That annual reset says, hey, if the market did terrible during that point-to-point, that's okay. You have a starting point now of that next year, and you can go up from there. It's really a nice feature that I feel like just doesn't get talked about enough. But, the important thing I think you mentioned there is that direct investment. You're not directly invested in the market at this point. And that's why you have those principal protection features, right?
Yep.
That indexing offers. Your money can't go backwards. It can only go forwards. And with that said, you do have those options like the S&P 500, NASDAQ, the Russell 2000, and then the endless amount of proprietary indexes that we're seeing out there.
How do you get into that conversation? How do you get into not only choosing an index, but blending indexes? Let's say you're not setting 100% of the funds into one. You want to split it up. How do you do that?
For me, indexing it's definitely one of those more daunting things. It's something you have to pay attention to. These things are changing all the time. You have participation rates. You have different components like caps. And remember, everybody has the S&P 500, right? It doesn't matter what carrier you look to for IULs or fixed index annuities. Starting off with the S&P 500 is such a great way to say, hey, this company has got a much higher cap than company B. It's a great way to start. But then you have the par rates in there as well. You have the spread indexes as well. Having all of those components really makes you have to look at the options that you have in play. One habit that I see so many agents do is that you're right. They're not blending indexes. They're just putting everything 100% to the best illustrating index. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's really become a problem in this industry. It's really plaguing the industry as we get into these competitive battles between different illustrations. And like our last video said, we shouldn't be selling to the illustration anyway. Let's talk about what the product will do, not what it might do. I like to do a lot of research on these indexes. I like to look at blending them across maybe 4 or 5 different options. You can put 20% of the allocation into 5 different indexes. And, the way I like to look at it is you have the S&P 500, just an easy one for everyone to understand. You have like a NASDAQ index that takes advantage of technology stocks. You have indexes like global indexes. A lot of options are out there now for a global index that takes into place like the Japanese Hang Seng, those different markets that are out there that you can blend in there. If American equities are doing poorly, maybe those equities are doing better. You can take some advantage there. I think agents a lot of times shy away from some of those monthly average indexes and things like that. They don't fully understand them. Here at OAKTREE Brokerage, we have guides that actually explain what these things are in pretty simple language so you can better understand them. But again, it really comes down to those different components. I like to just make sure we're blending in maybe some technology stocks in there. Maybe you're putting in just the S&P, the Russell 2000, and then maybe a couple proprietary indexes as well. There are some really nice features of these proprietary indexes that are coming out.
Well, and I think also with blending indexes, it's great to know how and everything, but I think a lot of people ask why. They don't understand why.
Exactly.
And while you're providing protection for your clients while taking advantage of that upside scenario, by blending your indexes, you're actually also mitigating volatility. That's the goal of it, right? If all your eggs are in one basket, that's what it does.
Exactly.
Right? But if you've got some spread out, you're going to mitigate that volatility.
I find when agents are going 100% to one index, obviously they're picking the one that's illustrating the best. You're creating a very strange expectation at that point that you're going to see this massive growth in this index. And, being on the annuity side and life side, I've too often seen these things just not work out for folks. And it's a hard conversation to have on an annual review, right?
Yeah.
If you're doing the annual reviews like you're supposed to be doing, that is not a fun return back to the client, showing them, oh, this index that's showing 9% returns did nothing for you this year. Or the dreaded 2-year index that did nothing over 2 years. That's even scarier. So you want to make sure that you are blending those indexes to at least take advantage of those high earning years. And that's the advantage of indexing, right? It can really take advantage of those big growth years for folks. But again, I think with those annual reviews, indexing has to be a part of it. This is not a set it or forget it world that we're in, whether you're doing fixed index annuities or whether you're doing IULs.
I totally agree with you. I think the days of the set it and forget it index product are pretty much behind us.
Right.
The goal is not the sale. The goal is every year to have a good annual review. If you're blending these indexes, if you're mitigating that volatility, if you're really talking about and educating your clients on what they're getting into, it makes those annual reviews a lot easier. Essentially, you're just trying to keep them on a path. You're guiding them. So if you're staying educated about the indexes, you're staying up to date, you're seeing what they're doing as you're selling more of these products, then when you come to an annual review, it should be pretty simple to talk about.
And one question that I always get from folks is, why choose indexing when you have whole life products out there? Why look at these things? How do you come to these decisions? I think where we make ourselves really stand out here is we have so many tools at OAKTREE Brokerage to help figure out what indexes are going to be the best option for you. We actually have tools where you can go in and look at the past 20 years of illustrated performance of an index, and then the past 20 years of actual performance, how these indexes have really performed. And what's neat is some of these indexes are used with multiple carriers. So you can actually see the actual growth of the index, not what a carrier is saying. And if they say, oh, I had it at a 15% cap or something like that. No, the actual performance of the index. So many tools are available to learn more about these indexes, make educated decisions when looking at what to decide to put in for your clients.
That's really the power of indexing. Getting into what you were talking about, why an index product versus a whole life or something with a fixed account? Those fixed accounts aren't usually that high, right? You're looking at 2.25%, something like that, right? Guaranteed.
Even in a higher interest rate environment that we're in, they may be high for a year, but a lot of carriers on those renewals might just drop them down to that 2.5%, 3%.
You have that protection. There are going to be years that it may not be as good as that 2.25, 2.5%, whatever it is. But you're going to have those years that you're going to get credited with 6%. It's bound to happen. If we're getting less than that guaranteed amount anyways every year, we've got a lot more to worry about.
Right. We have to understand that the S&P 500 has done 7% over the past 30 years. And when you kind of manage that expectation to look for growth like that, that's consistent, I think you can have much better annual reviews with your clients.
It's a solid piece of information just to have in your back pocket when talking to people about these.
I think it needs to be, because if you're illustrating, and a lot of carriers, because of AG 49B, and then even on the annuity side, they've had to tone back some of these illustrations. And you might have the guy showing the 17% returns. You got to come back and show, hey, yeah, I'm showing 6, 7, 8%, because that's a realistic look at what you could do here. So yeah, when the S&P cap is 11%, that's actually pretty solid when you consider what growth has done in the actual past of the S&P 500.
Here at OAKTREE, like you've mentioned, we have a lot of tools to provide you if you're interested in getting into indexing. If you have questions about what indexes to select, proprietary indexes from carriers, that's where I invite you to give us a call today to see how we can help you out and get access to some of those tools we have. If you enjoyed this conversation, or if you'd like to see anything specific in our future videos, I invite you to join the conversation in the comments below. And of course, make sure you like and subscribe to these videos so that you don't miss out on anything we're talking about.